Have you ever looked at the world around you? Maybe scrolled through the news and just felt overwhelmed? Like things are spiraling out of control. Imagine that feeling amplified, a world so broken it grieved the heart of its creator. That's the world Noah lived in, right before the most devastating flood in history. Welcome to Bible Questions Hub. We dive deep into stories like these, tackling the tough questions the Bible raises. Today we're exploring Genesis 6. Why did God choose such a drastic measure as a global flood? Was there truly no other way? Stick with us as we unpack the heartbreak and hope in this ancient account. Understanding why the flood happened gives us incredible insight into God's character, His justice, His sorrow, and His unwavering plan for redemption. If you find these explorations valuable, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future videos where we unravel more biblical mysteries together. Genesis chapter 6 opens a window into a world vastly different from the Garden of Eden, yet only a handful of generations removed from Adam and Eve. The narrative begins almost matter-of-factly, when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. Genesis 6:1. Humanity was fulfilling the mandate to be fruitful and multiply, but something had gone terribly wrong. The paradise lost was rapidly devolving into a world saturated with corruption. The next few verses, Genesis 6:2-4, are among the most debated in the entire Bible. They speak of the sons of God seeing the daughters of men, finding them attractive, and taking them as wives. This union resulted in the birth of the Nephilim, described as mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Who were these sons of God? Interpretations vary widely. One, fallen angels. Many scholars, drawing parallels with passages like Jude 6 and 2 Peter 2:4, believe these were rebellious angels who unnaturally intermingled with human women, creating a hybrid race and further corrupting humanity. 2, godly line of Seth. Another view suggests the sons of God were the descendants of Seth, Adam's righteous son mentioned in Genesis 5, who began to intermarry with the ungodly descendants of Cain, daughters of men, thus diluting the faithful line and leading to widespread apostasy. 3, powerful rulers' nobility. A third interpretation posits that sons of God was a term for powerful human rulers or nobles who, perhaps like Lamech in Cain's line, Genesis 4:19, began taking multiple wives, asserting their power, and contributing to societal breakdown through tyranny and lust. Regardless of the precise identity of the sons of God, the result is unambiguous and central to understanding the flood. These unions, and the general trajectory of humanity, led to an explosion of wickedness. The Nephilim, often translated as giants or fallen ones, seem associated with this period of intense corruption and violence. Their presence signifies a world spiraling into chaos, marked by power struggles, pride, and a departure from God's intended order. Verse 3 adds another layer. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. This isn't necessarily about individual lifespan reduction, though lifespans did decrease after the flood, but is often interpreted as God setting a probationary period, 120 years until the judgment of the flood would come. It signifies God's patience reaching its limit, a divine boundary being set against unchecked sin. The narrative then shifts dramatically from the actions of humanity to the perspective of God. This is where we find the core reason for the flood. Genesis 6:5-7 is profoundly revealing and deeply moving. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. Let's unpack the weight of these verses. First, notice the assessment of human wickedness. It wasn't just occasional wrongdoing or isolated pockets of rebellion. God saw that wickedness was great in the earth. It was pervasive, systemic. More than that, the problem wasn't merely outward actions, it stemmed from the very core of human nature. Every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. This is a staggering description. Imagine a world where every inclination, every plan, every desire, originating from the human heart, was fundamentally bent towards evil, all the time. There was no internal check, no widespread desire for good, no collective turning towards God. The corruption was total from the inside out. Second, observe God's emotional response. The text uses powerful anthropomorphic language, attributing human emotions to God, to convey the depth of his reaction. He regretted, or was sorry. The Hebrew word nacham can imply deep sorrow or grief, that he had made man. It grieved him to his heart. This isn't the reaction of a distant, unfeeling deity casually deciding to wipe the slate clean. This is the heartbreak of a creator, seeing his beloved creation utterly defile itself and reject his love and purpose. It's the sorrow of a father whose children have turned completely against him, filling his world with violence and corruption. The judgment to come wasn't born of capricious anger, but of profound grief and righteous sorrow over the state of his creation. Third, understand the divine resolve. Faced with pervasive, internal, continual evil and his own deep grief, God makes a decision. I will blot out man whom I have created. The Hebrew word for blot out, macha, often means to wipe away or erase. This was not merely punishment. It was a cleansing, a removal of the corruption that had saturated the earth. The judgment extended beyond humanity to animals and birds, suggesting the interconnectedness of creation and how human sin profoundly affects the entire created order. Amidst this bleak picture of universal corruption and impending judgment, a single ray of hope shines through. But Noah found favor, grace, in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6:8. Why Noah? The text immediately explains, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Genesis 6:9. This description stands in stark contrast to the rest of humanity as follows. Number 1, righteous, tzaddik. This implies Noah lived in accordance with God's standards, maintaining a right relationship with both God and others in a world that had abandoned both. Number 2, blameless, tamim. This doesn't mean sinless perfection, but rather integrity, wholeness, and sincerity of heart. He was morally upright and complete in his devotion within the context of his time, in his generation. Number 3, walked with God. This echoes the description of Enoch, Genesis 5:24, who also escaped death. It signifies a close, intimate, ongoing relationship with God, living life in conscious fellowship with Him. Noah wasn't spared because he was inherently better in a way that earned salvation, but because his faith and obedience, demonstrated by his righteous character, positioned him to receive God's favor, or grace, chen in Hebrew. God, in his sovereignty and mercy, chose to preserve a remnant through this one man who still maintained a relationship with him. The narrative reiterates the reason for the impending judgment, linking it directly to Noah's commission. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. Genesis 6:11-12. The word violence, Hebrew chamas, is key. It encompasses more than just physical aggression. It includes injustice, oppression, exploitation, cruelty, a complete breakdown of moral order and disregard for the sanctity of life and God's creation. This violence wasn't incidental. It filled the earth. God saw this corruption. It wasn't hidden from him. The phrase, all flesh had corrupted their way, emphasizes the universality of the problem, affecting both humans and potentially the animal kingdom through humanity's mismanagement and sin. It was this pervasive corruption and violence, stemming from hearts continually set on evil, that grieved God and necessitated a radical intervention. God then speaks directly to Noah, repeating the reason for the judgment. I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Genesis 6:13. So why did God send the flood? Genesis 6 provides clear, albeit sobering, answers. Number 1. Pervasive human wickedness. Sin wasn't just present, it was dominant. Every thought and intention was bent towards evil continually. Number 2. Universal corruption and violence. The fabric of society had disintegrated into injustice, cruelty, and chaos. Chalmers. The earth itself was defiled by humanity's actions. Number 3. God's grief and righteous judgment. God wasn't indifferent. He was deeply grieved by the state of his creation and humanity's rebellion. The flood was an act of righteous judgment against intractable sin. Number 4. Failure to fulfill God's purpose. Humanity, created in God's image to reflect his character and steward his creation, had utterly failed, choosing rebellion instead. Number 5. The need for cleansing and renewal. The corruption was so deep and widespread that God determined a cleansing was necessary, a reset to wash away the violence and wickedness. Number 6. Preservation of a righteous remnant. Despite the judgment, God's grace was evident in sparing Noah and his family. Noah's righteousness, a result of his faith and walk with God, allowed God to preserve humanity and his covenant promises through him. The flood narrative is challenging. It forces us to confront the reality of sin's consequences, the holiness of God, and the concept of divine judgment. Yet it's crucial to see it not just as an act of destruction, but also as an act of preservation and recreation. God didn't abandon his creation entirely. He made a way through Noah and the ark to save a remnant and eventually establish his covenant anew, Genesis 9. The story serves as a stark reminder of the seriousness with which God views sin and rebellion. The pervasive evil grieved him deeply, leading to a judgment designed to cleanse the earth. However, it also highlights God's enduring grace, his willingness to save those who walk with him by faith, like Noah. It underscores that even in the face of overwhelming wickedness, God provides a way of escape and continues his plan for redemption, a plan that would ultimately culminate not in a flood of water, but in the saving work of Jesus Christ. Understanding Genesis 6 helps us appreciate the depth of human sin that necessitated such drastic action, and the even greater depth of God's grace in providing salvation then, and ultimately, through the cross. Thank you for watching the Bible Questions Hub. If this video helped deepen your understanding of God's Word, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Got questions about the Bible? Drop them in the comments. We might answer yours in the next video. Until next time, keep seeking truth, stay curious, and remember, the answers are in His Word.